Today we're going to be talking about lesson 7.3, the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem is all about right triangles and their sides. So the sides of a right triangle have special names. The two legs are the two sides that form or meet at the right angle. We call those side A and side B. Side C, or the hypotenuse, is the longest side and it is opposite of the right angle. I like to remember the hypotenuse is the longest side since it's a longer word. We can find and use the Pythagorean theorem to help us find missing pieces, so either a missing leg or the missing hypotenuse, by using a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now we see that the legs are labeled A and B. Those are interchangeable. It doesn't matter which leg is A and which leg is B, as long as the hypotenuse is labeled as side C. Now, taking a look at number 1, we are going to find the length of the hypotenuse, or the longest side of the right triangle. We're going to start by writing our formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and fill in the pieces that we know. I often use the smaller side as side A, but it doesn't particularly matter. So a squared plus 15 squared equals c squared. And we can simplify. 8 squared is 64. 15 squared is 225 equals c squared. Combine like terms. 64 and 225 is 289 is equal to c squared. Now we need to get c by itself. So the opposite of c squared is the square root of c. So if we're going to take the square root of c squared, we also have to take the square root of 289. So the square root of both sides. The square root of 289 is 17. The square root of c squared is c. So we know that c is 17 feet. The hypotenuse of this triangle in number 1 is 17 feet. Now we do know that there can be a negative and a positive square root, but we know that the distance, the length, has to be a positive number. So that's why we're going to get a positive 17 feet. Now go ahead and try number 2 on your own. Here again, we're going to plug our numbers into our formula. So 2/5 squared plus 3/10 squared equals c squared. 2/5 squared is like 2/5 times 2/5, or 4/25. 3/10 squared is 9/100 equals c squared. Now, what do you think we're going to need to do next before simplifying and solving? We cannot combine these two fractions until they have common denominators. So common denominator would be out of 100. 25 times 4 makes 100. 4 times 4 is 16. Now we can add our fractions. 16 and 9 makes 25 over 100 equals c squared. Now again, we're going to take that square root of both sides. To find c. When we cannot simplify our fraction, we can take the square root of the numerator and the square root of the denominator. We know that the square root of c squared is c. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 100 is 10. So c equals 5/10 or 1/2 inch. As you can see here in numbers 3 and 4, we are now missing a leg. We're missing either side A or side B, and we've been given the hypotenuse, or side C. So we're going to continue with the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared and plug in the information we know. So we know that A is 16. We are missing side B, and we know that C is 34. So 16 squared is 256 plus b squared equals 34 squared is 1,156. Now, when we need to solve for b squared here, we can use our inverse operations to solve for the variable. So the opposite of positive 256 is to subtract 256. Here we're left with b squared equals 900. The square root of b squared and the square root of 900. So b equals 30 yards. Now we can kind of check our work knowing that side B has to be shorter than the hypotenuse. So since 30 is shorter than 34, it's likely that we have the correct answer. Go ahead and try number 4 right now on your own. All right, here you can see I've started the problem for you. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. We know that we are missing side A, so a squared plus 9.6 squared equals 10.4 squared. I know that 10.4 goes in the spot where C goes because it is the longest side and it is opposite of the right angle. 9.6 squared is 92.16, 10.4 squared is 108.16. We can subtract using our inverse operations to find that a squared equals 16. Now again, we need to find a. So the opposite or the inverse of a squared is to square root it. So we square root on both sides to find that a is equal to 4 meters.